Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Found Friday on Blab. You can also watch this episode on Ginzametric's YouTube channel or listen to our podcast on SoundCloud. This week, we're talking about strategies for creating content groups, and we're joined by David Kutcher of Confluent Forms. Welcome, David.
Hi,
David,
thanks for having me on.
can you start us off by introducing yourself?
Sure. So I'm David Kutcher. I'm the co-owner of Confluent Forms. We're a web design, web development, and online digital strategy firm in Western Massachusetts. Been in business since 2002 with about 250, 300 clients during that time. So lots of websites for lots of different businesses.
Excellent. And Erin, as long as we're doing introductions, why don't you introduce yourself as well?
Hey, Erin Robbins, and I am the president of Ginzametrix, and we are an SEO and content marketing analytics and insights platform.
And I'm Karen Skates, and I'm the marketing PR manager at Ginzametrix. So let's start the conversation off by talking about the importance of creating content groups in the first place.
Sure.
Anyone? Go ahead. David, we got David on the show because we were doing a blab, and David made a comment about content groups, and we got all excited because we're always talking about content groups. So I'll throw this one at you, David, and say, why do you think? I mean, we keep saying why we think they're important, but why do you think that it's important?
So one of the ways that I got involved in creating content groupings was with a client of mine because we were really working out their buyer personas. So in the process of creating their buyer personas and identifying content that they had created over time for these different personas, we started looking at ways that we could identify and pick apart their top performing content based on each one of those personas and be able to see, okay, well, how is the content for this persona performing versus these other personas? So using content groupings, we were able to essentially say, okay, well, this company in particular was a pitching coaching firm. So they help everyone from high school athletes to professional athletes throw a baseball faster, harder, and not get injured. But within that, they had all different types of personas, such as the high school athlete, the high school athlete's parents, trainers, coaches, semi-pro, college level, professional level, all these different personas, and they were writing content for each one of the different ones. But how do we know how well different content for different targets was performing? Content groupings. So we'd be able to pull out, different blog articles they had written, different resources that they had published, different PDFs that they put up there, put them into these personas, these groupings, and be able to identify them and cross-compare and see how each one is performing isolated or against each other, or maybe say, you know what, we're not really focusing enough on this type of content and this persona. Let's write some more content for that one. Let's do some more marketing, or this one over here, maybe it's underperforming. We can see how that's performing across the board. So that's kind of where we saw content groupings being really interesting, and giving them really good insight about how their marketing was playing out.
Okay. And Erin, did you want to weigh in on that? Erin is somehow frozen. So I don't know. She's going to have to try to log back in, I think.
It's Blab.
We're in the beta, right? So,
We're perpetually in beta, yes.
So hopefully I'll get a notification here that she's going to be able to come back in. I did hear a rumor, as long as we're talking about Blab, I heard a rumor that Blab might be changing their platform a little bit. Did you hear anything about that?
So I think they announced it a little while ago that they are pivoting to a different one-on-one chat or group chat, where they're not really into these types of not pre-recorded, but recorded sessions of things that we're doing right now. We are not their target audience.
Right.
So it's unfortunate because it's actually really.
Let me see if I can get Erin in here. Come on. I'm giving her props, so how come I can't get her in? Yeah, we're here. Sorry.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to get in, and I think it's a connection issue.
Hold on. Sorry, everyone, for the delay. Any idea? I have a little flashing thing for her, but
No, it's neither of us. It's her connection.
All right.
Yeah, whenever she.
Yeah. So she should be able to.
Yep. That's what happens with that.
I'm going to pause the recording real quick. Okay, we're recording again. We're back on air.
Okay, so I agree with everything that David was talking about in terms of like what you're really looking at is a better understanding of kind of what's going on with your audience. And there's a lot of different ways to address that, right? So the importance of creating groups is around the importance of the flexibility of those groups and what they mean to your marketing and what they mean to your conversions, right? So like the idea is if you're creating content, you're likely trying to create a conversion, whether that conversion is the actual sale of something directly to a customer, trying to get somebody to sign up for something, trying to get donations for nonprofits, whatever it is, it's conversion. So if you're creating content, you don't know how it contributes to conversions. A lot of times what happens is people don't know where to start with how to like measure all of that stuff, especially if a lot of it's like legacy content. And so they've got all of these pages, they've got on-site, they've got off-site, they've got like, now they've got advertorials and like all kinds of junk that they've decided that at some point somebody was like, we should try that because it's shiny. And now they've got all these things and it's like, how do I deal with it? So one of the quickest ways to get a handle on the situation is to start grouping things so that you can actually begin the measurement process somewhere. And then the idea with creating content groups is you can move things around within those groups to make it matter or mean what you need it to mean. So I think one of the things that scares people about groups is they think that once they add something to groups, if the group doesn't look right or doesn't perform right, like they're gonna have to break it all back down, and you don't. Really, that whatever system you use to do that should be something flexible. But I mean, 100% agree with the idea that like what you're able to do is do compare and contrast, and you're able to like slice and dice and do all these different things. Like that's absolutely the reason to do this.
How can tracking content by content groups help marketers to understand where audiences are in terms of their purchasing intent?
Oh man.
Any thoughts on that? So,
well, it requires you to actually think about your content as a funnel, you know, which most people don't do. I think most businesses think of their content and their site as a flat thing with, you know, still with the disjointed belief that their homepage is their primary landing page, that the traffic is coming through the homepage, it's going down, you know, and not understanding how their user funnel actually works. What I think content groupings in this case allow you to do is revise that and turn it like on its head and say, you know what, content is content. Let's see where they're coming in. Let's see how we can identify them. Let's see how it performs. You know, if you're an e-commerce site, let's see how, you know, necklaces are performing against earrings and how they're performing. How, you know, based on URL structures, how this type of content is performing against this type of content, and using them as a way of rethinking that content funnel and sales funnel, and understand that perhaps somebody is coming in, their first look is the blog posts. Let's pull out all the blog posts, you know, as a content. How are they transitioning into, you know, our more informative or white paper content? You know, how is that funnel working? And I really think it's what I think is fun is when you can use those content groupings in addition to using segmentation and understand the depth of the insights gained by pulling out just one type of content and see where is this coming from, how is it coming, what's the behaviors that are going in here, what's the behavior flow, and how does it look, because it's going to be different, you know. And I think that most people don't understand that it can vary significantly.
The funnel thing is so fun because I feel like traditional marketing was very funnel focused, and then when online content and a lot of things moved to like mobile, and there was just so much more content online, like every type of content was online, people were just like, screw the funnel, like it's flat, because what happened was the funnel was hard. And they were like, oh, the funnel's hard, so we're just gonna say it's not a funnel. And that really messed everyone up. And then what's hilarious about what you said that's so true, and just makes me wanna cry my eyes out every time, is everybody assuming that their homepage is where people go first. If that's an actual thing, it means that either A, you assume that your homepage is the source of all keywords that are relevant to everything that you do, and that all keywords lead there, which is mortifying, because you must have like the world's longest homepage, or the best optimized homepage I've ever seen in my whole life. Or like every advertisement, every social promotion, everything you do, you're driving only to that one URL, as opposed to the most relevant possible piece of content that you have. Like, that's the most asimine thought ever, that everything goes to your homepage first. So no.
But it's so true. It's so, but I know we've all seen it. Everyone has that belief. And if you go through a web design process, where does everyone spend all their time? They focus and obsess about the littlest things that are on their homepage. And then they get to the interior page and like, I'm so burned out from doing the homepage, I can't even focus on the UI or the UX of the interior pages.
Or what to put on the actual, like what to actually put there. And the whole thing is, like, for me, one of the last things I focus on is the homepage content, because the homepage should be a reflection of what it is people will find in the interior pages, right?
It's how to move them off the homepage as quickly as possible.
And hopefully sometimes you don't even see it. Like, a lot of times people will never even see it. They'll come in from a social post, they'll come in from an email, they'll come in from somewhere else. Like, the thing that God forbid, right? Like, we do not send out emails to people that lead them, that's about a really specific topic. Like, hey, we just released universal search. And then we're like, by the way, go to the homepage and then good luck finding the landing page on universal search somewhere in here. So you got to create these groups, right, that help people understand. So when we're talking about how to understand where somebody is in this intent thing is, yes, the funnel online is hard. Like, it's complicated. One of the ways to uncomplicate some of that is to understand that the funnel, like the groups, is a moving thing. So somebody may come in and actually look at like a white paper or a case study really early on, and that may make it look like they're further down in the funnel, but you can quickly see by the rest of the content they consume where they are in the consideration process. So the idea is that people don't necessarily just move down the funnel. Sometimes they swim around up and down the funnel all which ways, but like, it helps you understand what they've seen and how deep their knowledge is of what they're looking at with regards to you, which is why it's still important to attempt to like create a funnel, and to figure out, like, even if you don't want to call it a funnel, if like that word has negative connotations to you because you're like an old school marketer and you're like, dude, funnel, like, I'm so scarred from like the 90s. I cannot even deal with the funnel. Like, think of it more as like knowledge depth than like funnel. I won't even make the funnel movement anymore. Just think of it as like depth of knowledge instead.
You can't even use it as a blog article title anymore. The funnel is dead. I mean, it's been belabored beyond.
Yeah. Well, everything has died and been resurrected at this point. So.
Exactly.
Hey, SEO dies once a year, so I get to hear that constantly.
SEO is dead. The funnel is dead.
Yeah.
Did you know we're actually dead? This is coming to you from beyond the grave. I hope you.
Everything, and then people talk about everything you can't track. You can't attribute sales. You can't. It blows my mind. It's just because you're right. It's hard. Yeah. It takes a little bit of work to find those answers.
You can track anything.
Right.
I will tell you, you can track anything. It just requires sometimes innovation, a little bit of process, a little bit of reshifting things around. If you want to track it, you can track it.
Yep.
Telling me you can't track it means you shouldn't be doing it is actually my response that I always tell people. I'm like, why would you do something you can't measure? What's wrong with you? You crazy?
Let's talk a little bit about how people can use content groups to help determine the overall effectiveness of campaigns and audience engagement with content.
Oh, Karen's trying to keep us on track.
Sorry.
So, I think coming back to my first example of the buyer personas, like if I'm having this client write content that's targeting to the high school athlete, and we've identified a content grouping that's all the content that's been written for the high school athlete, we can track the effectiveness of it. We can track, how many pages per visit they said, how long the session was. Did we move them to their goal conversion points? Did they come back? How many were repeat users? How did we keep them engaged along the path? We can track that effectiveness, and we can know that this was the origination point. This is the funnel they fell into. This is the content grouping that they fell into. And now we can keep them and say, okay, we know who you are. We know what you like. We know which email list to put you on because we saw the content that you came for. We know how to better market to you in the future because we know you're already into this type of content. Go ahead.
I was going to say, that's the whole point, right? Is giving people a more relevant experience so that you can convert. And this is the part of the thing where I rant about the medium, the method, and the message. So one of the types of grouping that I like to do is grouping everything by medium, method, and message, because that to me is the end way that I want to slice and dice stuff. So the medium, for those of you who haven't heard this particular before, is the type of content. So whether that's like a video or a blog or an image or like, you know, a landing page, whatever it is, right? Like it's the type of content itself. Then the method is the channel that we're talking about distributing it on. So whether that's your blog, Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, Twitter, website, advertorial, whatever, right? So the channel. And then the message is the thing that you're trying to get across. So the message can be a campaign. So if a campaign is centered around like a really specific outbound thing, or the message can be specific to like a feature or a product or whatever it is. And the other layer of this is like location. So we'll call it market because it fits in with my M theme. So what we're talking about here is if you measure and segment out, and you can, because you can put content into multiple, I know, right? Because you can put content in multiple groups, you can have groups for all the mediums, for all the methods, and for all the messages. And then you can really accurately slice and dice. And then what you can do is if you actually compare your content with your keywords, you can tell and you can start to understand, do audiences in different places or in different age groups or looking at different feature types look for different words or respond differently to different types of products? So like maybe you'll find that on the West Coast, that people really search and relate to content for a product or a feature around a specific set of keywords and get to a certain set of content versus, you know, like maybe the Southeast. Or maybe what you see is people who really like a specific feature talk about the product natively on social or find content in a different way. So then what you know to do is when you're creating content for that specific feature, maybe people really like video content who are looking for that type of thing. Or maybe a different group really does better with like longer form PDFs or like printable content. Like, you know, there's a lot of different people who actually still really like having a printed version of certain things for particular industries. And people keep trying to force them to have it online or in video, and they don't like it. So, you know, you also have to take into account, like, are we slicing it out for medium and method specifically versus mobile, tablet, and PC type of content, right? Because like that also is a really different audience type and where they're gonna consume the type of content you're creating and what they're searching for when they're looking for it. So like if you go back to how they're finding it initially, if they're getting to it because they're on Facebook mobile or searching on mobile, they might get a different type of content experience than if they had been sitting down, like looking at their laptop. So I go back to the media method message thing about determining the effectiveness and audience engagement is like, if you don't slice and dice it that way, you're not looking at content effectiveness in a way that's actually going to help you make a better decision later. You're just looking at traffic.
Well, it also, I mean, by simply doing it, it actually makes things like your demographics report actually be useful again. You know,
yeah, like an accurate demographics report. What is that?
Yeah, exactly. Like if I were to take this client as the example, their demographic report would be nonsense. It would be everyone from the ages like from 15 to 45, if not older, which is completely useless data. But if you start breaking down and creating these groupings, creating it, you know, just like you were saying, then it actually starts making sense. You can actually look at this content grouping and go, oh, okay, the average age here is 16 to 22. You know, it's actually makes demographic reports valuable again. It makes marketing to your demographics valuable again because you're not looking at this hodgepodge conglomerate and aggregate numbers of crud. You actually have targeted information again.
I mean, I was sitting down when I was working in agency life back in the day, and we had a client come in and we were asking him all these questions about demographics. And similar to your client situation, it was like ages like 15 to 95 or whatever. I'm like, and then men or women? Yeah, all that. And then I was like, so your audience is people? Just people? That's your audience? Like, and they're like, yes, everyone could buy our product. And I'm like, no.
Well, no, they have to have money. Everyone with money is our target audience.
Everyone with money, and then it turned out like everyone with money who went to these particular types of sites and everyone who went to these particular sites who like enjoyed that specific hobby. Like it was like, yeah, so actually not just people, but it's funny when you're like, yeah, just people.
A lot of times we talk sort of about things at kind of a higher level, and people go, yeah, that's cool. And then they go away and they're like, well, how do I actually do that? So can we just talk a little nuts and bolts? How do you go about deciding what to include in a specific content group? Can people or can things belong to more than one group? And what's involved in sort of creating effective content groups? Just some tips, I guess, for getting started.
Well, tips, I mean, from our perspective, of course the lawnmower starts.
Of course the gardeners are here.
Don't worry, that happens to me at least once a month.
The next is going to be a dog barking. So,
That'll be my dog.
Well, within analytics, you're limited to 5 groups, but within each one of those groups, you have an unlimited number of sections that you want. So if, like you were saying, the medium, the message, and the medium message and method, new as an M. I mean, those could be your 3, and then you still have 2 left over. But within each one of them, you can break it down however you want. I tell people just jump in with the first one. Like, just create a group. The hardest part is just getting in there and understanding that I need to do this, so not to overthink it. Seriously, and that's my main message to most people with analytics is stop being afraid of it. Because if you're afraid of it, you're not going to do anything, and you won't get any good intelligence out of it. Yeah. After that, I mean, I'm big into buyer personas, mainly because that's my business, and that's how we really encourage our clients is to start thinking about buyer personas. So I have them literally go through and create their buyer personas, and then within one group, it's the buyer persona group, and then the subgroups are each one of their different buyer personas. Second one, off of that is a topical one. So I usually have one and the other. Just getting them started as, okay, you have buyer personas and you have topics. That usually gets them pretty far. If they're not hardcore marketers, I feel like that gets them far enough to be effective in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with the idea that like you do just have to get started at some point. Like the whole one of the things that I see people do, and I know how hard it is when you work in a big organization, is that they'll get everybody involved and be like, how should we create these groups? And then everybody like, we should do groups for this, and we should do groups for that. And my whole thing is just make groups for everything then. Like, who cares, right? Because stuff can be part of multiple groups. And then like, we'll get rid of all the trash that's not actually like a relevant group. But if you're going to wait for everyone in a big organization to agree on the group types, like you're never going to create any groups. And if you have a specifically anal marketer running your stuff, like they're going to want to reevaluate all of it 1,000,000 times and change their mind 700 times. When in actuality, you could have just created it and then changed your mind while it was running. Like it's
not backward. It doesn't backward do it anyway. It doesn't backfill. So while you're waiting, and belaboring that which groups should be what, you're missing this data that you then have to wait at least 2 weeks to a month to have anything valuable in there.
So in Ginzel, we do backfill that stuff, by the way.
Oh, analytics doesn't backfill.
Yeah, so like we'll backfill. But the cool thing, so that's actually one of the things that we did with our platform is because we realized people were like going through this whole, I don't want to do it and I'm afraid and it's going to mess it up. Or like, what if I want to make things into all these groups? I'm like, okay, guess what? You can do all that. So put content, like one piece of content into 10 different groups. Totally cool with me. You can also like use the wizard thing, right? So it's, you want to create groups around the medium. Everything that has like a /blog goes directly into the blog group. Everything that has like video, like /video goes directly into the video group. And so you can do all these things and then you can go back and edit them and change things around and it'll automatically pull in new content as it's added. But once you've created a group, you can delete the group and recreate the group later if you decide you want it back, but there's no messing it up, right? Like you're not going to ruin anything because here's the thing, at the end of the day, you still have all the data that's like non-grouped data regardless. So it's not like if you create the group, you're slicing that data out of your normal analytics. Like you can still get to like full site level analytics. You can still get to individual content analytics. You can still get to keyword analytics. You can still get to like social and traffic level stuff. So it's all still there. You're not going to break the analytics. But that's a lot of what I see, right? Is like, I don't want to create these groups because like, what if I like screw it up and it ruins everything? It's like, there's literally no way to ruin it other than to not do it.
Yeah.
Right. The fear usually gets in the way of most of it. It's the fear of, well, Just like you were saying, if I screw it up, I'm going to mess up all my data, and then I'm going to be further back than if I just left it alone.
Well, the only way I think that you get into trouble potentially dealing with groups, and I'll just be honest on it, is like if you create groups in a crappy way, sorry to be so blunt, but like if you just like are being a fucking idiot and create groups in a stupid way, and then you just start reporting on it. So like, let's say you call a group, like you've got 100 pieces of content around widgets, and then you only pull in like 4 pieces of that content into the widget group. And then you're like, the widget group only got 500 views this month. And it's like, no, you didn't add in all the content, dude. Like you're missing out on a bunch of stuff. So this is where the gut check comes in, right? Like you should know, hopefully, although I shudder because I know a lot of people don't know, you should hopefully know generally how much traffic something should be getting as like a content group. So if you think something should have 10,000 views a month and it looks like for that group you only have 500, double check. Like, don't just report on it and be like, well,
I don't know what happened.
Traffic must have really fallen off. Like, no, just like double check on that stuff. But a lot of times that is what happens, right? And then people are like, double checking, that sounds hard. Like, yeah, but your reporting in general is going to be so much better. And then your decision making is going to be so much better. And then your conversion is going to be so much better. And your whole life is going to be easier. It's just you have to take a little bit of time to set this stuff up. Call David and pay him to set it up.
Yeah, there you go. Is there anything marketers shouldn't overlook when setting up content groups? Like, is there something people are missing?
Oh, offsite content, maybe. So, like, if you have a YouTube channel or something like that, you can add that content into the groups. I know you can do that in Ginza. It depends on like what else you're looking for. But if you're really trying to understand kind of the full spectrum of how a campaign is performing, you need to go in and add in the URLs for your offsite content too. And for other like platforms and social channels that you may be looking at. So like YouTube's a pretty easy one to, like add in or, something of that nature. But I think that that's important. Especially anything that links directly to your site, kind of like one-to-one. The other thing that I think is kind of important that people don't sometimes see with content groups, we do it because we do marketing channel performance chart, but it's harder, is stuff like email. Because it's not like, because email is a driver to content, but a lot of times people will embed stuff into emails. Like you need to take into account how they're getting to that content when email is a really big part of your marketing ecosystem.
All right. So, David, any last thoughts for us on this topic before we sign off? We're just about out of time.
I think it's just a matter of people doing some forethought and actually strategic thinking about their websites and their content marketing. I think that that's the part that's oftentimes lacking with the web and web marketing is that, you have people that are just throwing content at the wall and seeing, not even seeing what sticks. They're just throwing content at the wall.
Yeah.
But then you also have, build outs of these websites where nobody's actually looking at the analytics. Nobody's even trying to figure out what content and what actionable intelligence can be gained from any of it. And it really does take a bit of forethought to start asking questions about your analytics and start thinking about, well, how do I differentiate what this is? How do I find out how this is being effective? How do I figure out who is coming here and why? And I think that that's part of the problem, which is a small percentage are doing that kind of strategic thinking. And it's not always the companies that you think are doing it, and even those large companies that have large marketing departments, they still are governed by people who are afraid of looking at numbers.
Yeah. We see that a lot, the afraid of looking at the numbers, or that because the marketing environment has changed so much and the types of things that people are doing has changed so much that the concept that they don't know how to measure something effectively or what to do when numbers don't seem to add up correctly is they don't want to admit that they don't know because they're afraid it's going to jeopardize their position. Is that stuff gets swept under the rug or accurate measurement never does get put into place. And that's always really sad to see. And we do see that a lot. And, so we try to make analytics less scary to people, but sometimes I very selfishly think it's great that people don't really put a lot of thought into things and are just creating crap content and throwing it up against the wall, because I'm like, that makes everything that we do so much more awesome looking. And for the people that really do try, like, man, I look great. Thank you.
Well, my favorite is like when you have a company that has a marketing department, a sales department, and an IT department, and none of the three actually talk to each other.
And a customer success and account management department. Like, so the people that actually interface with people who should be telling you what people's response to stuff is. Yeah. Why do we care what they think? Who needs to know what your actual customers say?
Talk to you. Yeah.
There's a client I was talking to yesterday who said, this is all great and all, but this isn't my department.
Fantastic.
And a large company, I will not name, and you'd be surprised. And just like, how is that? No, we can do this. We can get to the answers. We can help you. And then you can pass off this report to your other team and they'll be like, whoa, where'd you get this stuff from? Like, just, it takes a little time and a little bit of collaboration internally and a little bit of, strategic thinking.
Well, one of the reasons a lot of people don't want to do this, that I'll also say happens a lot at large companies, is that a lot of departments are taking credit for things and things are getting assigned credit to multiple departments. So like, a lot, like they'll be like, oh, this campaign did X, and everybody will be like grabbing parts of that success. And then when you actually add up all the success parts, there's more than 100%, which by the way, is like not a math thing. Like,
oh no. And now Erin has spoken again.
That's where she goes.
Right in the last moment. All right. Well, sorry, Erin. Well, that's okay. We're kind of out of time today anyway. We're going to have another conversation. It's been great having you on, David.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm going to stop the recording again.
You can't have more than